to the day I think Vince left, he was still hands-on with everything. Vince was there for everything. He wouldn't necessarily be there when they used to have these big cubes that they traveled around with. There were soundproof cubes, and they'd have two of them going. And that's when the guys would all come in with TV tapings, and they'd have to do their generic interviews. But whenever it was a pay-per-view, or when we did Saturday night's main event, anything like that, Vince was, yes, right there in the room. And I think back to that time of doing those, and I still have nightmares of thinking you could never screw up. From my position, you could never screw up, because you have, sometimes, let's say it was a Royal Rumble or something like that, where you had 3 or 4 guys in the interview, and each one had to say something, and you had to get the order right. You had to be able to transition to them, and the pressure of, if you're the one that screws that up, you're the mic stand basically. And so you never wanted to falter. You never wanted. And with Vince in the room, I mean, after a year or so, I got used to it, but not really, because all you needed was that look from him, and you're just destroyed. So that was another thing about handling any kind of pressure. I said, from that point on, nothing ever has shaken me. And doing news afterwards, and I did national conventions where there's thousands of people around you, and the light goes on, and you got to go, and you're live. That's pressure, but it still never matched being in one of those interview rooms with Vince McMahon off on the wings, and you doing the interview. That's what you call, that was pressure.
He was like, everyone kind of says, not a slave driver, but he's just nuts. It's got to be his way. He's got a certain thing. He really was, like, kind of how everybody says, he's like kind of over the top, really, even with all the announcers and all the commentators. That's really how he is. He's just nutty, and it has to do with his way.
Yeah, and you can't. That was the thing, you really couldn't argue with how hard he wanted you to work, because he worked harder than you did. I don't know if the man ever slept. They used to, I remember, Pat Patterson and Bruce, and they would be at his house in Greenwich, planning out pay-per-views or whatever, where they would have these marathons. They'd be there for days. And, when you were in that circle, that's just was your life. Kevin Dunn, to his credit, be all of his talent, but his greatest talent was being able to be around Vince and deal and know how he operated. So yeah, that's the way Vince had a hand in every single thing, no matter what it was, down to the smallest detail. I remember those production meetings, and he would just notice these details of things that, you had to pay attention to, and remember this and that, and I would just be blown away. Like, how does he keep all that stuff straight? That's insane. But that was him. And I didn't work with him for the last 30 years, but I knew people that still did, and throughout that whole process, and they said he never changed.
Why did you leave the WWF? I guess it was 93-ish or somewhere around there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I don't think I was really mature at the time and realized the opportunities that I'd been given. And I had always wanted to do other things. I wanted to get maybe more into entertainment television and that kind of thing. But there was a lot happening also with the WWE at the time. And Vince was convinced I was going to go down south. That's when everybody was starting to go down to the WCW. And I told him, no, I'm not. If I'm going to be working professional wrestling, I'm going to work for you. I don't think he didn't really believe me, even when I left. But I've told the story that when I ended up working for WWOR down in New York and Jersey, of course, that's where it is, Secaucus, when I went there.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the first night that I anchored, and it was about a year after I'd left the WWE, and I kind of worked my way up through the ranks at that station and got the opportunity to anchor. The next day, I got a telegram from Vince at my house, congratulating me, saying, thanks for making us look good. I still have it to this day. And I think it was two things. I think he was saying to me, I appreciate you that you were straight. You didn't with me and didn't go down and work for and lie to me and then go down there. And the other thing was that I brought a lot of credibility to the fact that here was somebody a year or so before that. I was, and whenever they talked about me in the papers, the Post or whatever, it was always former wrestling announcer, but I did become an anchor. And I think it just added credibility that, well, why not? That's legitimate. I, went and paid my dues and did whatever I had to do, but it brought credibility to his business. And I think that Vince really appreciated that.